You step up to the tee. You line up dead straight down the middle. You take a smooth swing or a hard one. It never seems to matter, and you watch that little white ball peel off to the right like it's running from you. Here's the part nobody on television ever explains. The harder you try to hold that club straight, the worse the slice gets. Why would trying harder make it worse? That makes no sense. An old man on a worn-out driving range in the mountains of Japan handed me the answer, and it wasn't a swing tip. It was a movement his grandfather used with a sword. By the end of this, I'll show you exactly what he showed me, a single motion the Japanese wrote down and taught in Kyoto more than 120 years ago, long before golf was ever popular there. And I promise you this, you can practice it tonight in your living room with a bath towel you already own. I still remember the first time I saw him do it. He was bent over near the end of the range, picking up balls into a rusted basket, an old man in a faded cap, and I'd been slicing for 2 straight hours in the fading light. He walked over, said nothing, took my club, wrung his hands on the grip once like he was squeezing water out of a rag, and hit a low ball that started right and curled gently back to the center like it was on a string. Then he handed the club back and walked away. He didn't even watch it land. I spent the next 3 weeks trying to figure out what I had just seen, and what I learned changed everything I thought I knew about the golf swing. Let me take you back to that range, because you need to understand where I was standing before you'll believe where this ended up. I was in my late 50s. I'd been playing weekend golf for over 20 years, and for 20 of those years I had fought a slice. Not a small one, a big, ugly, banana-shaped slice that cost me 2 or 3 balls around and every ounce of confidence I had on the first tee. I had bought the fixes. I had spent money you would not believe. An anti-slice driver with weight jammed into the heel, $40 for a special grip, $190 on lessons from a young pro who kept telling me to rotate through. I did everything I was told. The slice stayed. That summer I was traveling through the Nagano region near the old castle town of Matsumoto, and down a side road I found this small, quiet driving range tucked against the base of the hills. 60 yen for a basket, green netting sagging off the poles. It was the kind of place the modern world had forgotten, and that turned out to be exactly the point. The old man's name was Mr. Okada. I didn't know it that first day. I only knew him as the man who picked up the balls and, once in a great while, stopped to watch someone swing with a look on his face like he was reading a book written in a language only he could see. Before he ever worked that range, Mr. Okada had been a kendo teacher. Kendo, the way of the sword. He'd spent his whole life studying how the human hand meets a handle, how force travels from the body down the arms into a piece of steel and out through the tip. And when he looked at my golf swing, he wasn't seeing a golf swing at all. He was seeing a man holding a sword and refusing to cut with it. That's the part I need you to sit with, because it's the beginning of the mystery. I thought slicing was a golf problem. He looked at me and saw something much older and much simpler, and something almost every teacher I had paid was too busy to notice. But before I tell you what he saw, you have to understand why the ball slices in the first place. Because once you understand this, you'll be angry at how simple it is, and at how many people took your money without ever telling you. Here is what modern science proved, and here is what the whole slicing industry would rather you never fully absorb. For most of the 20th century, golfers were taught that the ball starts where your swing path points and then curves. That's wrong. It was measured wrong for decades. Then the launch monitors arrived, high-speed radar systems like the ones the fitters use now, and the numbers came in, and they were shocking. The direction your ball starts in is controlled mostly by one thing, the angle of the club face at the split second it touches the ball. Not your path, not your stance. The face. On a driver, the face angle at impact is responsible for roughly 85% of where that ball starts its journey. Let that sink in. 85%. The face. So if your ball keeps slicing off to the right, it is not because you aimed wrong, and it's not because you didn't swing hard enough. It's because at the instant of contact, your club face was pointing to the right. It was open, wide open, like a door left ajar. And the curve, the banana shape, that comes from the difference between where the face points and where the club is traveling. The bigger the gap between those two, the more side spin and the more the ball peels away. A slicer creates a huge gap. The face hangs open while the club cuts across from outside to in, and physics does the rest. That spin is not your imagination, it's measurable. A bad slice can put more than 3,000 revolutions per minute of side spin on that ball, and no amount of aiming further left will ever fix a face that stays open. Aim left, and you just slice it further off the property. I know. I tried it for years. So the real question, the only question becomes this: why does the club face stay open? Why won't it close? And this is where the story turns, because the answer is the exact opposite of what almost everyone taught me. I had always believed the club face stayed open because I wasn't strong enough or fast enough to square it up. So I gripped harder. I muscled it. I tried to force that face shut with my arms and my shoulders, and every single time, it got worse. Mr. Okada watched me do this maybe 4 or 5 times over 2 days before he finally stopped picking up balls, set his basket down in the dirt, and spoke to me in slow, careful English. He said one sentence that I have never forgotten. He said, "You are choking the sword." I didn't understand. I thought he meant I was gripping too tight. That's part of it, but it wasn't what he meant. He meant something deeper, and to explain it, he had to take me all the way back to a training hall in Kyoto in the 1890s. Now here's where someone made money off your confusion, and I want you to see it clearly, because once you do, you can't unsee it. Think about how much the golf world has sold you to fix a slice. The offset drivers, the draw bias weighting, the lightweight shafts they swear will help you release, the training aids strapped to your wrist, the lessons where a man films your swing on a phone and gives you 11 things to think about. There is an entire industry built on the fact that you slice the ball, and almost none of it is designed to actually cure you, because a cured golfer stops buying things. I'm not saying every teacher is a crook. Most mean well. But the whole machine has an interest in keeping the fix complicated. A complicated problem sells lessons and gadgets forever. A simple answer sells nothing. And the answer Mr. Okada gave me was so simple, so old, and so cheap that no store could ever put a price tag on it. Because the answer wasn't in a golf shop, it was in a sword. Let me tell you about the movement, because this is the heart of everything. In Japanese swordsmanship, there is a concept called Ti no Uchi. It translates roughly to the inside of the hands, but it really means the way the hands work at the exact moment of the cut. For centuries, a Japanese swordsman's entire effectiveness came down to this: you could be strong, you could be fast, but if your Ti no Uchi was wrong, your cut was weak, and your blade twisted, and in a real fight, that meant you died. And here is the beautiful part, the part that connects a sword to your driver. The old masters had a phrase to teach the correct hand action. They called it chakin-shibori. A chakin is the small cloth used in the tea ceremony to wipe the tea bowl. Shibori means to wring, to squeeze out. So chakin-shibori means wringing the tea cloth. At the moment of the cut, the swordsman's hands ring inward on the handle. The right hand turns one way, the left hand turns the other, gently, like you're wringing the last drops of water from a small damp towel. This wasn't folklore whispered around a fire. This was formal teaching, codified and written down. When the Dai Nippon Butoku Kai, the Great Martial Virtue Society, was founded in Kyoto in 1895 to preserve and standardize the sword arts, this hand action was part of the recorded curriculum passed to every student. It is documented, it is dated, it survived the collapse of the samurai class, it survived the modernization of Japan, and it survived because it works. And Mr. Okada's grandfather had learned it in exactly that world. Mr. Okada learned it from him, and on a forgotten driving range decades later, he handed it to a slicing foreigner who had no idea he was receiving something with more than a century of documented history behind it. Now watch what happens when you bring that motion to golf. When you swing a golf club and you try to hold the face square with brute force, your hands lock up, your forearms stay rigid, the club head lags behind, the face hangs open, and it never gets a chance to rotate and close before impact. That's the slice. That's the door left ajar. But the wringing motion, the chakin-shibori, does something a rigid grip can never do. As the club comes down into the ball, the lead hand and the trailing hand gently ring toward each other. The trailing forearm rotates over the lead forearm, and that rotation flips the toe of the club over, squaring the face and then closing it right through the strike. The face goes from open to square to slightly closed, exactly when the ball is there to feel it. You don't force it, you allow it. That's the whole secret. And it's why trying harder made me worse for 20 years. Force freezes the wrists, the wringing frees them. And that's the moment I want to stop and be straight with you, because I know that feeling of wringing a rag in the dark and wondering if the slice will really let go this time. Everything Mr. Okada taught me, the wringing release, the loose grip, the way an open face steals your driver, is written down in full in the Kaizen swing system, an instant PDF sent straight to your email. In the Kaizen Daily volume, you learn to diagnose your exact fault before you change a single thing. You get the trail elbow explained, why it betrays you, and over the top decoded down to the real cause, not the symptom. And the elbow code takes you further into the one joint that controls every shot downstream and the lag mechanics that separate good shots from great ones, real, repeatable power you actually own. Here's a test you can run tonight for nothing. Hold a golf club and squeeze the grip as hard as you can. Then try to let your trailing forearm roll over. Feel how it locks. Then ease your hands to about a 4 and try again. And watch how freely the face wants to close. That gap you just felt is your whole slice in one motion. The whole thing is more than 410 pages of real content, and you can check that page count yourself the second it lands in your inbox. The fastest way to get the books is to scan the QR code right there on your screen, or go to the link in the description or the pinned comment. The Japanese framework in there is built to work for older hands and slower swings. It never depended on youth or speed, so it will still fit you exactly as you are. But before I hand you the training method itself, you need to understand why knowing the secret still wasn't enough for me. Mr. Okada put it another way that I still hear in my head. He said the sword must arrive. You don't hit with a sword. You let the edge arrive at the target with the hands wringing at the last instant, and the blade cuts itself. Your driver is the same. You don't hit the ball. You let the club head arrive and release, and the face squares itself. The first time I truly felt it, I hit a shot that started slightly right and drew back to the center, and it made a sound I had never made before, a low, heavy thump instead of that thin, weak slap a slicer knows too well. I turned around like a fool to see if anyone had watched. Only Mr. Okada from far down the range, and he just nodded once and went back to his basket. There's a piece of golf science that backs this up perfectly, and I only learned it later. On a driver, there's something called gear effect. When your slicing swing cuts across the ball and catches it toward the heel of the club, the face gears open and adds even more slice spin. But when the club head releases properly and the toe rotates through, the strike moves toward the center, and the gear effect actually helps the ball turn over. So the release doesn't just square the face, it changes where the ball meets the face, and both of those things fight the slice at the same time. The old wringing motion was solving a problem in 1999 that radar wouldn't fully explain until decades later. But here's where the mystery deepens, because knowing about the wringing motion is not the same as being able to do it. And this is where most people fail, and where the industry counts on you failing. I went back to that range the next day full of confidence, and I sliced my first 15 balls right off the netting. I couldn't repeat it. I knew the secret and I still couldn't do it, and I nearly quit right there. Because when you're standing over a real ball with real fear of the slice, every old instinct comes roaring back. You grab, you freeze, you try to steer. The wringing motion vanishes the second the pressure returns. And that, right there, is why simply hearing this tip on some website won't cure you. Knowing is not the same as owning. You have to teach it to your hands until your hands believe it without your brain. So Mr. Okada gave me the training method, and this is the part that changed me because it required nothing. No club, no range, no money, no lessons. Now, I know exactly what some of you are thinking. You're thinking this is a nice story about a magic old man in Japan, but you live in an ordinary town. You're not young, your hands aren't fast, and you can't fly to Nagano to have a kendo master fix your swing. I built this next part just for you, because everything I'm about to describe you can do this week, in the house you're sitting in right now, with things you already own. Go find a hand towel, a regular bath towel, or even a smaller one. Get it slightly damp and roll it up lengthwise so it's like a thick rope. That's it. That's your training tool. That damp rolled towel is going to teach your hands more in 10 minutes a day than that anti-slice driver taught them in 5 years. Here's the first thing you do, and it's the simplest. Hold the rolled towel in both hands the way you hold a golf club, with your normal grip. Now, slowly wring it, right hand turning down and under, left hand turning back over the top, squeezing toward the center like you're wringing water out of it into the sink. Feel how your forearms cross. Feel how your trailing forearm rolls over your lead forearm. That crossing, that roll, is the exact release your golf swing has been missing. Do it slowly, 20 times. Then do it a little faster. You are not swinging. You are teaching your forearms the shape of the motion, away from all the fear a real ball brings. The second drill uses the towel as the club itself. Take that rolled, damp towel and make slow swings with it, holding one end so it hangs like a heavy rope. Because it's soft and weighted, it forces you to feel the head swing down, and at the bottom, wring your hands so the towel snaps and rolls over. If you release properly, the towel makes a clean little whip sound at the bottom and rolls to your left. If you hold on and choke it, the towel just flops. The towel cannot lie to you. It tells you instantly whether you released or held on, and it costs you nothing. The third piece is grip pressure, And this is where nearly everyone gets it wrong. You cannot wring a towel if you're squeezing it in a death grip. Mr. Okada would take my hands and physically loosen my fingers. On a scale where 1 is barely holding and 10 is white knuckle, you want to be at about a 4. Firm enough to control it, soft enough to let it rotate. Slicers almost always grip at a 9. That 9 is what freezes the wrists and holds the face open. Ease it to a 4, and suddenly the wringing motion is even possible. Do those 3 things, the standing wring, the towel swing, and the loose grip for 10 minutes a day for 1 week, in your living room, in your garage, in your backyard, and I promise your hands will start to remember a motion your body was never allowed to learn. You are not practicing golf. You are unteaching 20 years of fear. And here's the beautiful part for the people who think they're too old or too slow. This motion does not need speed. It does not need young wrists or strong forearms. Mr. Okada was in his 70s, thin as a reed, and his release was effortless because it was a wringing, not a hit. In fact, the older you are, the more this helps you, because it lets the club do the work your muscles no longer can. The slice is a young man's mistake of trying to muscle the ball. The draw is an old master's art of letting the club arrive. You are perfectly built for this. Now let me pull the whole thing together, because there's one final piece Mr. Okada gave me on the last day I ever saw him, and it's the piece that made everything click. This is the part I've been holding back the real answer to the mystery. I asked him, near the end, why nobody had ever taught me this. I had paid professionals, I had read books. How could a cure this simple be so hidden? And he told me the thing I want to leave you with tonight. He said, the slice is not a flaw in your swing. The slice is a flaw in your intention. He said, you are trying to keep the blade straight because you are afraid to cut. When you fear the slice, you hold on, you steer, you try to guide that ball to safety, and that very act of steering keeps the face open and creates the exact slice you were afraid of. The fear causes the flaw. The flaw feeds the fear. And you can chase that circle forever, buying every gadget in the store and never escape it. Because the escape isn't a product, it's a decision. You have to be willing to let the club release, to let the face turn over and close, to let the blade cut and trust that it will find the target on its own. And here is the exact feeling he taught me. The one thing to take to the course. As you swing down into the ball, think one word, ring. Not hit, not hold, ring. Let your trailing forearm roll over your lead forearm through the ball, exactly like squeezing that damp tea cloth, exactly the way it was written down in Kyoto in 1895. Keep the grip at a 4. Let the head arrive. And that face, the same face that stayed open and mocked you for 20 years, will close all by itself, and your ball will start right and turn gently home. The first full round I played after I truly owned it, I did not lose a single ball to the right, not one, after 20 years. And I stood on the 18th green, almost shaking, because it had never been a matter of strength or talent. It had been a single ringing motion, kept alive in a family of sword teachers, written into a 120-year-old curriculum, handed to me by an old man picking up balls in the hills of Nagano who never once asked me for a thing. I went back the following summer to thank him properly. The range was still there, the netting a little more torn, but Mr. Okada was gone. The young man running the place told me he had passed that winter. I stood there a long time with my 60-yen basket, and I made myself a promise that whatever he gave me, I would give away too. That's why you're hearing this now. So here is what I want you to carry out of tonight. Your slice was never a punishment for being weak or old or untalented. It was the simple result of a hand that was never taught to let go, a truth someone could have handed you decades ago and didn't, because a man who is still fighting his slice is a man who keeps opening his wallet. You're not the kind of person who wants another gadget. If you were, you wouldn't have stayed with me this long. You're the kind of person who suspected all along that the real answer was something plain and old and quietly buried under everything they were trying to sell you, and now you're holding it. So do one thing for me. Go find that hand towel tonight, roll it up, wring it 20 times, and then come back and tell me one thing in the comments. How many years have you personally been fighting your slice? Put the number down. I read them, and I want to know how long they kept this from you. Write it now while you're thinking about it. And if you believe, like I do, that the best answers were never the expensive ones, that they were handed down quietly from a grandfather to a teacher to a stranger on a range, to you, then come with me. Subscribe and stand with the people who are digging these old, honest methods back up before they're lost for good. Because the next one I'm going to show you is the reason Mr. Okada could hit that low, boring, wind-cheating ball into a headwind that the rest of us could only dream about, and it starts with a single change to where he stood before he ever moved the club. I'll see you there. So this video showed you what Mr. Okada showed me, but inside the Japanese ways circle, I walk you through the full towel drill, motion by motion, picking up right where we stopped. And in there you can ask me your own question and I answer you myself, a real person, not a machine. You'd belong among thousands of curious folks just like you. Point your phone's camera at the code on screen, and you can cancel anytime, no risk. Now that your slice is fading, let's fix what's really costing you distance. In the next video, I'll show you the simple elbow move Japan's pros use for straighter, longer shots. It's starting right here.